When your secretary tells you that the president of Paramount Television wants to see you in his office right away, you go. So I rushed across the studio back lot, but kind of in a run walk. I did not want massive pit stains when I got there. I hightailed it down Old Western Street, firing my fake six shooter at a network censor who believed that saying fart on television would end civilization as we know it. Passed by the huge water tank where naval battles were usually shot, also a great place to drown the writer who handed in a script so lame we'd have to eat it. Down New York Street to the executive building, where the suits hunkered down away from the creatives. I did feel one bead of sweat roll down my arm. As soon as I walked into his office, Gary Nardino bellowed, "What the fuck did you do? Cindy Williams quit the show last night." Immediately, I was sweating bullets. Nardino began to tell me how he believed that somehow this was all my fault, and I should have been listening. I shouldn't have been thinking about how I was going to tell my wife that our lives were about to turn to shit, but make it funny. No, I should have been thinking about showrunner rule number one. No matter what happens, no matter how crazy it gets, you don't shut it down. The show must go on. But the show was Laverne and Shirley, and all the scripts we had prepared featured Laverne and Shirley. If I wasn't going to shut it down, somehow in less than 24 hours, I had to come up with a script that featured just Laverne. A season that was already the season from hell was about to get worse, and I wasn't even supposed to be there. In 1982, there was no caller ID, and if you had a cell phone, it's probably the size of a shoebox, and none of us had realized yet that all telemarketers should be shot at dawn. So, when the phone rang, you'd answer it. "Hi, Mark. It's Penny." I recognized Penny Marshall's blonde anywhere, because we worked together. Starting in 1978, and for 2.5 seasons, she was Laverne, and I was a writer on Laverne and Shirley. I started as a story editor and worked my way up as to showrunner as one after another my predecessors got fired for various reasons. But I was never fired. I left the show when the studio asked me to write and produce a pilot for a show called Working Stiffs. I was one of the rare few who had survived Laverne and Shirley. On the phone, Penny told me that the studio had asked her to direct her first feature film, The Joy of Sex. And there was a really funny script, but the story was a mess. It needed a lot of work. And Penny asked me, she told me actually, that she was going to hire me to do a rewrite. I was going to be in the movie business, which a lot of people think is a step up from working in television. I was thinking, all right, nice job. Spirit guides. I got to tell you something that I don't usually tell people. I have spirit guides. I learned about them a few years earlier when I was having a past life reading done. Now, I don't really believe in past life readings. Whenever you hear about somebody's past life reading, everything was always ice cream and cake. They were either a Maharaja or a Maharini. You never hear that anybody was shoveling shit during the Inquisition. But a good friend swore that this past life reader was the best, and he wasn't going to stop bugging me till I went. Well, this woman got right to the name dropping, said I was good friends with Benjamin Franklin. And then she said, I was a very old soul that had lived in ancient Egypt and that I knew Moses, and she was quite sure that I was the guy who invented matzah. So evidently, I told Moses that I knew a way that he could lead hundreds of thousands of Jews through the desert for 40 years and no one would have a decent bowel movement. Obviously, he loved the idea. Well, none of this was bolstering my opinion of past life readings, but then the woman apologized to me. She said she wasn't seeing something from my past. She was seeing something right then and there, and that I was surrounded by 3 ascended masters who were my spirit guides, and they were looking out for my life and my career. And for some reason, that made some sense to me, because I've always said I don't write the jokes. I just get to read them first. I don't know where the jokes come from. Are jokes a gift from God, from a muse, from ascended master spirit guides? Maybe. I mean, that makes as much sense as anything else. And now if they were getting me into the movie business, they were doing a good job. Well, then Penny told me that she still had to do another season of Laverne and Shirley, and she was worried that we wouldn't have enough time together to work on the movie script. So she asked me to come back to Laverne and Shirley as the showrunner so that we could spend a lot of time together. Okay, we've got to take a minute and do a little TV 101 here. As a showrunner, kind of like a head football coach, I'm responsible for all aspects of the show. So I don't design the sets, but the set designers show me what they want to do, and it's the same with costumes. I don't edit the show, but I watch every cut with the editor and give my notes. But my main responsibility is the writing. I'm the head writer. So I decide what stories we're going to tell and who's going to write those stories. I decide if my joke is funnier than your joke, and hopefully I'm smart enough to know that when your joke is funnier than my joke. Typical TV season is 22 episodes, which means that we are going to conceive and write and cast and shoot and edit and deliver the equivalent of about 4.5 feature films in only 9 months. It can be grueling. So normally we'll shoot 3 or 4 episodes in a row and then take a week off. Well, the actors take a week off because, well, the actors get tired. But the writers desperately need that week to catch up on their writing and their sleep. And that's a normal season. What Penny Marshall didn't tell me until after I said I would take the job was this was not going to be a normal season. Because Penny had to prep the movie and because Cindy Williams was pregnant and knew when her baby was due, we weren't going to have to shoot all 22 shows in 22 weeks. And even though Penny and Cindy had to be in all 22 of those episodes, they were only going to be available for 18 of those weeks. It was not ideal for producing great work. And I should have said no right away. But lacking the artistic integrity and the financial stability to say no to the deal, I said, sure, let's do it. Well, right away, first week, problems. Because Cindy was pregnant and looked pregnant, we decided that she would marry some military guy who was based who knows where. But Cindy didn't want anybody to see the face of who she was marrying. Now, I was worried that our fans who had cared about these characters for 7 years would feel emotionally cheated not seeing Shirley's big wedding. But Cindy was the star of the show. So we said that her soldier husband had some weird tropical disease, and we wrapped him from head to foot in bandages. And Shirley was going to be the mummy's bride. And because she was pregnant, she really couldn't do the physical comedy that was the hallmark of the show. But somehow we got through that episode and the next 4, but none of them were great, and everybody was frustrated. But it wasn't until after we finished episode 6 that I was in front of Gary Nardino and Tony Thermopoulos, the president of ABC, and Gary Marshall, yes, the Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, Gary Marshall. And they were taking turns telling me how somehow this mess was my mess. Basically, I was screwed. But fortunately, I had 2 other thoughts. One, oh, way to go, Ascended Master Spirit Guides. This is the way you're taking care of my life and my career. And by the way, when you're dealing with the spirit world, there's no accountability. It sucks. But the other thought was there any way I could fix the script we had? If we could save enough of it, we could live to fight another day. And that's when I thought about when I had cast a monkey earlier in the day. Yeah, when you work on a show like Laverne and Shirley, you get to cast monkeys and horses and dogs. And, back then, no one had even heard the term animal rights. So, roller skating bears and elephants in tutus dancing on their hind legs and lions jumping through fiery hoops. We assumed that all animals wanted to be in show business. Why wouldn't they? So, when I said I needed a monkey who could smoke cigars and play cards with Laverne's father, casting director found Bobo, a chimpanzee who could do it all. Nardino was telling me just what my career was about to look like when it hit me. If Laverne could be in that same poker game, and she'd be alone because Shirley was off with her husband for a few days, and she was happy for Shirley for getting married, but she was just starting to realize that this friend, this best friend, this friendship that went on forever, it was going to change. It was never going to be the same, and that was making her sad. And that's when Bobo would put his arm around her and give Laverne a kiss on the cheek. We might have a great scene. And we also might have a scene that would establish Laverne on her own, just in case the show wasn't going to be Laverne and Shirley, it was going to be Laverne and nobody. Well, Nardina was saying something about my children and my children's children, and I interrupted and said, guys, I think I have a fix for this week's show, but if I don't get back to the office, we may not have a script for tomorrow. As I left the office, each of them was saying, and don't you dare shut it down. Well, Cindy Williams never did come back to the show, and we did shoot all 22 episodes, and I never did shut it down. Why would I? Because no matter what problems you're facing in life, you just have to remember that the show must go on. It's showrunner rule number one.
That's